Okay, going to Bob Chapman, former military intelligence, ran the biggest newsletter, financial newsletter out there for a long time, retired, came back with the internationalforecaster.com, made a lot of just amazing predictions. He said many, many months ago that the stock market would go back up, gold would explode. He predicted that in the fall. I don't want to go back over all his predictions here. We've done that before. We just need to pay attention to what he's saying now. And I want to start going to your phone calls for those that are holding at the bottom of the hour, specifically questions for Bob Chapman. But I know some of the callers are already holding, so you can bring up other issues. He'll be able to comment on that. But after we go through this raft of calls, if you're calling in, just questions for Bob Chapman on the economy and the balance of the hour that we have, 1-800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us on air. Bob Chapman, good to have you here with us.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here again.
Gold is above $1,102.
Now, somewhere up in that area, it's been trading back and forth over 1,100, exactly as we predicted. And you know what's surprising about this, and it's very disappointing to me. Analysts, economists, newsletter writers, they poll them. Hurlbut has a service where they poll them. And 96% of them said that gold was going to go back down again. I mean, you talk about a massive egg in your face. I don't know what these people are thinking about. They're not reading the tea leaves right. But anyway, we're happy we were right. Our subscribers, our listeners, they're making money, and so that's what it's all about. But more than that, they're protecting themselves.
But, Bob, you've made this point many times. Most of those analysts aren't stupid. They're paid and put on national television and given syndicated columns to lie to people.
Well, that's true. And then you have the factor of acceptability. A lot of these writers will know what's going on, but they won't talk about the very hard facts. They'll color them. They'll say, well, maybe the people at the SEC or the CFTC will pursue the fact that the market is being manipulated, or it's just full of excuses. And that draws them into the middle, so to speak, so they're not thought ill of within their profession. I get a different viewpoint. I don't care what anybody thinks. I hope that I'm right, and I say what I say, and I've been pretty successful at it, and I hope it continues that way. But nothing stands in my way, and I think less of them for that.
Well, you tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may, and 95% of the time you're accurate. So am I, and that's why we're so successful at reaching people. But it's kind of sad. I mean, it's like telling somebody you're going to die of cancer, and now we're dying of cancer. As a country, the republic is in bad shape. If we don't remove these criminals immediately, it's over. But it may be even too far gone for that. We just need to remove them so it doesn't get 100 times worse. Bob, what happened with the IMF dumping all this gold in the market? Ted Anderson, Ron Paul, in fact, I'm going to play that clip later of Ron Paul, said that clearly the IMF and World Bank came in and tried to drive down gold, and that for the first time in modern history, their attempt to drive it down failed and blew up in their face. And this is a major sea change for the dollar, for the markets, for gold. A, do you concur with Ron Paul and Ted Anderson? And B, what does this mean in the short term?
I agree. It's a seminal moment, and we've just passed it. I said there would be an untoward event, and that was it. And the only question I have about that is that I suspect there's a possibility that the Indians didn't buy that gold. I think there's a possibility that that gold could have been sold some time ago. And what they were effectively doing was completing the transaction by covering a short position. In other words, they had sold, and they would have somebody ostensibly buy it back when in fact they weren't. Now, India was one of the signatories to the IMF in 1947, and they chose a number of countries to hold gold. and India was one of them. And perhaps it's possible that the gold that India held may have been sold previously. And India was just saying, well, we're buying it, and that would have completed the transactions because essentially they were sellers on behalf of the IMF before. So that's possible. The other thing is maybe they did, in fact, buy the gold. I don't know which, but I do know one thing. They're both good. And the Chinese say that we can get gold cheaper by buying gold produced in the country. And they're right. They're a big gold producer, but they have to wait for it to be harvested and brought in. And so I think Chinese are going to line up there. And if there is gold for sale in reality,
all right,
I
Bob,
think they'll be
go ahead.
standing there to buy.
Okay, stay there. Bob Chapman's our guest. We're going to continue to talk about these joblessness numbers, record high, and that's even Cook numbers. We're going to talk about where gold's going from here and your phone calls.
What's so crazy?
I'm going to play a clip of Ron Paul talking about the attempted gold manipulation by the IMF when we come out of the next break. Bob Chapman's our guest. Bob, the mainstream media and the IMF, the World Bank, the G20 have gone from saying, will we go off the dollar to, yes, we're going off of it, and it's now begun. Will it be a long, protracted death or a quick death? Why does the establishment want this? Why are they doing this? This jobless recovery oxymoron, over 10% unemployment, those are Cook numbers. Break it down for us.
Well, the unemployment numbers are easy. That's U3 that they're talking about, 10.2% up from 9.75%, 9 5/8, whatever it was. The real figure is the U6, which is 17.5% by their 7 5/8%, according to their own figures. That includes U3, which is the 10.2%, those who are no longer receiving checks, those who are discouraged, and those who are forced to work part-time. There's one thing that's left out of there, and that is called the birth-death ratio, which means the government says, well, gee, we can't check on everybody, so we'll guess. And so they always guess in their own favor, except for twice in the last 6 years. And so with that said, if you extract the birth-death ratio, you will come up with a new unemployment figure of 22.4%.
That is depression level, is it not?
It's right on the fringe, at least in unemployment. And unemployment tends to be a lagging statistic. And that means that unemployment is going to get worse even if the economy gets a little better or better. And so I had projected in January, and we've talked about this before, 22%. And so I was wrong. It's a little higher than that. But that's okay. At the time I made the projection, the number was 13.5%. So, we were pretty much on. Next year, it'll probably run sideways to slightly higher, maybe 23 or 4%. It all depends whether we get stimulus and how much the stimulus is. They're talking about it now. We projected $2 trillion in January for this coming year. Now it looks like they want to do somewhere between 400 and 800 billion stimulus from Congress, and they want the banks to lend the 14% decrease that they've instituted in the last year. And if they do that, they'll come up with about 1.5 to 2 trillion, which is right in the ballpark of what we were looking for. But it's only going to buy them another year. All they're doing is throwing money at this thing, and it's not solving the problem.
Well, I was about to say, buy us another year until total collapse. I mean, the people are losing their jobs. The industry's falling apart. Retail sales are plunging. Every indicator is that the crash is already here, but we have all these painted trollops, the info babes, and the cutesy guys for the girls on Fox and CNN and MSNBC and CNBC explaining to us that, well, it's bad for you but good for the banks, so the economy's good.
Well, that's rather jaded. The whole thing is a scam, and in as much as the banks, the brokerage firms, and the insurance companies and transnationals caused this problem in the first place. And they're the ones that are getting bailout, not the transnational, but the others. And so very little has gone to the public. And I noticed they're going to extend unemployment benefits and as well as the $8,000 credit for housing. And they're going to try to keep the interest rates down as long as they can.
And that's like